This video will cover how a foundation like yours can use logic model heat mapping. Heat mapping is an exercise that can benefit any organization that has a logic model. Heat mapping is used to visually demonstrate where a group is most active with regard to its stated activities and goals. In our previous video, we told the story of the farmer whose goal was to provide a balanced meal for his family. He hadn't clearly articulated how to pursue that goal, but he suspected that if he went out and farmed, that will lead to results. So he went out in the field and he farmed all day. He planted his seeds, watered his plants, and harvested the crops. He brought home food so his family could have a balanced meal, and then he realized all he had was onions. That happened because he focused all his energy in one area of the field. Don't get me wrong, onions are great, but his family can't survive solely on onions. Similar to the farmer working to reach his goal, nonprofits want to use their resources in a way that will most efficiently reach their missions. As a funder, you may see yourself in this example as the farmer's local co-op bank that supports multiple farmers in their different endeavors. Your foundation can achieve greater clarity of purpose and improve your efficiency through logic model heat mapping. Here we have an example logic model used for one of our clients. No need to get bogged down in the details here. In short, it's a logic model for a funder that supports education programs. Let's pretend this is your foundation. You envision multiple outcomes from your support. This includes outcomes for teachers, schools, students, and non-traditional students such as the formerly incarcerated or high school dropouts. The funder in this example provided us with grant documents for the 11 grantees in the current funding cohort. Through our review of the documents, we were able to tag each grant to components in the model. For example, we learned one grant was funding a summer program. We tagged that grantee to that component in the model. Documents also indicated the program offered social and emotional support services. We tagged the grantee to that component, and so on and so forth. After tagging all of the grant documents, we tallied up the number associated with each logic model component. You can see 7 of the 11 grantees engaged in upgrading infrastructure. 11 of the 11 provided summer academic programs. We did this tallying exercise for each model component. You get the idea. We also needed to come up with a key for the heat mapping. We needed to create a key in which the ranges represented were meaningful. The following seemed most appropriate. We started with a light shade for lower values. If only 3 or 4 grantees' documents were tagged to a component, that number corresponded to very light shading. If as many as 11 grantees corresponded to a component, we shaded that as the darkest blue. Then we used our tagging and color-coded key to fill in the logic model with the right values. Here you can see darker components are places where you, as a funder, provided a great degree of support in this grant period. Lighter components are places where you provided little or no support. What trends stand out to you? Look for strands that are particularly light or particularly dark. What does that say about the support you provided as a funder? In this case, you appear to have emphasized support that goes directly to students. In turn, supported grantees seem to be striving for outcomes in these students like academic skills or attitudes. You appear to be providing comparatively little support to older youth. Only one grant, for example, supports high school dropouts or the formerly incarcerated. This finding could mean your foundation is not investing heavily in older youth outcomes and should update your mission and model accordingly. Alternatively, older youth supports could be a legacy program. Even though you're not currently investing in it heavily, it still may have a place on the model. While heat mapping, you may identify components that aren't currently on the model but should be. Here, a number of grantees expected outcomes in confidence, volunteerism, and the pursuit of advanced degrees. This finding may warrant a discussion of whether those outcomes belong in your logic model. Set aside a space on the model to track the components, revisit them in future discussions, and consider amending it. This step may really facilitate the continued refinement of your overarching outcome goals as a funder. That was a quick demonstration of how to use logic model heat mapping to achieve greater clarity of purpose as a funder. Now let's walk through the benefits of heat mapping. Heat mapping clarifies your group's mission and activities. You saw the heat map quantify exactly which activities were being conducted and how they lined up with your mission. Heat mapping facilitates strategy conversations. Funders can use findings here to speak about why certain areas are emphasized and others aren't. Finally, heat mapping is tallied based entirely off documents. These heat maps are rooted in what the grantees have said they're doing or plan to do. There's a few other important things to consider when you conduct heat mapping for your foundation. Heat mapping doesn't account for dosage. If a grantee has a really intensive program where participants attend every day, it still only counts as one occurrence despite it being so high touch. The opposite is also true. If a group has a very low touch program, it may be overinflated. All of this means you should be very intentional with your chosen unit of analysis. Components not already on the model require special handling. This exercise will not count activities or intended outcomes that are not included in the model. As shown earlier, if certain components not already in the model deserve attention, you may choose to track them. Finally, heat mapping relies on the clarity of program descriptions. This is the other side of the coin from the benefit mentioned earlier. Since numbers are tallied entirely based off how a program is described, they're only as accurate as the descriptions. They cannot account for additional information a group is not reporting or does not know is relevant. When it comes to logic model heat mapping, we're just warming up. The applications of heat mapping are only bound by your imagination and can be used by foundations, nonprofits, and coalitions alike. You may heat map based on program activities, investment dollars, grant date, or a variety of other variables. In all these examples, the heat map helps you quantify where the most effort or resources are being directed. The key is that heat mapping is used to visually demonstrate where a group is most active with regard to its stated activities and goals. We hope this video has inspired you to make a logic model heat map. You might also be interested in other episodes in this series on logic model heat mapping for nonprofits and coalitions. The episode on coalitions might be particularly useful as you think about your funding role within a broader environmental context. For questions or more information, feel free to connect with us on the following platforms.